All right. Good evening. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm pleased to stand up here with my friend and colleague, Representative Cliff Bentz of Oregon, as we both go over in detail the dire situation currently happening in the Klamath Basin in the area bordering Northern California and Southern Oregon here, this being Upper Klamath Lake. So this has been an ongoing problem over several decades, really. In March of this year, the Bureau of Reclamation, which oversees the water in the Klamath Project, promised that the growers there in the basin would receive 130,000 acre-feet of water. This on the heels of 2020 with a similar situation where the Bureau promised water to the growers in the amount of 140,000 acre-feet. Now this is of a total of a true water right of 390,000 acre-feet that is promised in the basin for the project. So these are already big cuts to what the original project intent was with 390,000 acre-feet and the amount that these folks have endured in cuts in recent years. So when they made that initial March allocation, the Bureau followed up in April, cutting that figure another 70%. Remember, 390,000 acre-feet cut to 130,000. In April, they cut additionally 70% more down to 33,000 acre-feet. So that is 8% of the water the irrigators would have been promised initially. Last week, another cut was made, now down to just 3,000 acre-feet. An acre-foot for those scoring at home is about 326,000 gallons, or the amount of water it takes to cover 1 acre with a foot of water. And at that point, the 3,000 acre delivery, the Bureau has decided is not worth the effort to deliver into the district, into the canals, etc. So basically what this means in 2021, no water would flow to the Klamath Project. This is for the first time since 1907, the headgates of the A Canal, next poster please, would remain closed. From June 1907 to May 2021, some amount of water has always flowed into the Klamath Project. So from the upper lake here through the A Canal, I'll show you more pictures later on how the A Canal works to feed much of the district. This area, of course, is populated by tribes, descendants of pioneers, frontiersmen, and veterans of World War I, World War II, who quite literally won a lottery to the homestead in the footprint of Lake Modoc. The water hasn't always been enough, and a mountain of unpleasantries have been shared over the allocation of this resource, but there's always been water at least. So I'd like to start the conversation on the Klamath going back to the fundamental water rights. The first private ditch in the basin was dug in 1868, and the few irrigation projects that were there at the time were quite small. In 1882, the first bit of land within the current project was irrigated. Authorized in Congress by 1905, it is the second oldest project in the West. There's several hundred miles of main canals, lateral canals, and drainage ditches, 200,000 acres of irrigated farmland across 1,400 farms. 27,000 is irrigable land in the lower Klamath and Tule Lake National Wildlife Refuge. Today, it's over 200,000 worth of value in alfalfa, hay, wheat, potatoes, including the ones you would get at In-N-Out Burger, French fries, as well as pasture. In 1917, the rock sill between Upper Klamath Lake and the Link River was lowered, allowing more flows to agricultural areas and downstream basins. In 1921, the Link River Dam was completed, allowing water to be retained during spring peaks and increasing the total amount of water in the lake. After nearly 50 years of construction, the final piece of the project was completed in 1964 with the Iron Gate Dam along the Klamath River, one of 4 dams that are providing hydroelectric power, excuse me, and are currently in peril too due to a fish passage issue. In total, the project allows for nearly 600,000 acre-feet of water to be stored. So the Bureau of Reclamation has been making an incorrect claim for quite a while to the Klamath Project water. They've been involved, of course, since Congress authorized the project in 1905. Every year, the farmers in the basin spend about $30 million to maintain this project, paying the government for that. The Bureau has acted as operator of the project and the headworks of the irrigation systems. In 70 and 73, Congress passed a National Environmental Policy Act known as NEPA and the Endangered Species Act, both well-intended. This legislation effectively requires, according to interpretation, the Bureau to prioritize the environment over the well-being and economic security of humans. That is not the original intent of Congress. This is what courts have ruled over the years. So the fish involved in the current issues are several species. The Lost River suckerfish and the short-nosed suckerfish, they only exist in the upper Klamath Lake. From 84 to 86, the sucker population began a steep decline, heading to their listing as endangered in 1988. The biological opinions, which heavily influence the water decisions and allocations coming out of the upper Klamath Lake, are the result of interior attorneys, longtime career attorneys here in Washington, D.C. So the recent biological opinions put out at the end of the Trump administration were partly responsible for setting the record straight and helping last year to get a little bit more water to the farmers as we had to rescue that situation in May in order to have their allocation kept at 140,000. So when the Lost River sucker was listed, two Klamath scholars actually noted that no one seems to anticipate that the listing of the suckerfish might have serious impacts on the operation of the Klamath project, which the impacts economically to people are required as originally part of the Endangered Species Act. That's all seemed to have gone out the window. Coho salmon is the other population of fish, native to the Klamath Basin and adjacent rivers and rivers all up and down the west coast. Salmon populations have followed a general trend of decline that is seen all across the Pacific coast. With all these populations, they're not just in the Klamath River, okay? So year after year, extra water flows down the Klamath River have been used to deal with what is known as the C. Shasta virus. Now, there's a lot of debate whether these flows are actually effective or not. There's counter opinions that keeping the river wet and all these flushes actually help propagate the virus instead of drying it out and making the virus dry out basically on the vine. And then there's a similar debate with the suckerfish in the lake that a high level of water in the lake will cause them to be more subject to predators in the lake, whereas a lower level, since they're a bottom feeder fish, and it's less conducive for the atmosphere for the predators of those fish. So it's seemingly going opposite directions. But we also have counter purposes for the federal agencies that are regulating right now, Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife, that are trying to preserve the deep lake for the sucker. At the same time, they want to have the flows go down the river to take care of the C. Shasta virus for the salmon. You can't do both, as well as have any water available for agriculture, for the communities, and for the refuges with the wildlife. So the irrigators, despite them receiving no water, the Bureau still plans to send 375,000 acre-feet downstream for salmon. Now, let's get to what the water rights look like. In 1975, shortly after NEPA and the Endangered Species Act went into effect, the Oregon Water Resources Department began the process of detailing and adjudicating the water rights of irrigators. Under Oregon law, Chapter 539, it lays out the process of determining water rights before 1909, when the Water Rights Code in Oregon was initiated. And a large part of this is on the Oregon side of the line. This process culminated in the 2013 findings of fact, 2013, an order of determination, which were then amended in 2014. Oregon water laws uphold the rights of the irrigators and distributes water based on the seniority of the claim. So what are the ramifications for failing to deliver the water? Now, there's still work to be done in reaffirming these property rights, which at the time seemed to be ironclad, but anything's fungible these days. So securing the property and water rights of the basin will still continue to be a battle. So while we continue that fight, we must highlight the dire straits of the basin today, without water. The canals, the ditches, irrigation districts are drying up. This will cause damage, permanent damage to the ditches and the irrigation system there. Basically, it's kind of like a wooden boat. They need to be gotten wet, each irrigation system. Also, the groundwater recharge that they provide for the people and the nearby neighbors with their domestic wells. Every year the project goes dry or loses water, the cost of returning to standard operations will increase. As I mentioned, with the canals coming apart, the first water that needs to go in them is actually absorbed by the canals to get them back into playing shape. So when we mentioned the 3,000 acre feet that are cut down to, and the Bureau has decided that's not even worth delivering, at least that could be positively used to some extent for those systems. As well, as I mentioned, the groundwater damage without the recharge. So most of the basin has to plan and plant based on what the Bureau tells them in April will be their allocation. For example, one grower there, a fellow named Scotty Finters, notes that the panic set in when the Bureau revised down their allocation last year in May 2020. He'd already bought seed, he's already paid the rent, already put out the fertilizer in the fields. Can you imagine you have something halfway done, committed, and they say, no, you're not going to have the inputs anymore to finish. So in total, about $75 million had been spent planning and preparing. Now, last year, again in 2020, after the Bureau initially reduced their allocation, the basin community rallied. There was a convoy of tractors and trucks that stretched 30 miles to say, you got to keep your word, federal government. So, indeed, it was an impressive turnout. So we come back to the water rights being upheld. Last year, Klamath Irrigation took the Bureau of Reclamation to court over its decision to increase downstream flows for salmon in the Klamath River. The state ultimately agreed with KID, stating that the Bureau has the right to store water in the upper Klamath Lake, but it does not own that water. It only has the right to move the water on behalf of the growers and the intent of the project. They do not have the right to take the water for salmon or suckers, salmon in the river or suckers in the lake. Madam Speaker, how are we doing on time so far?
The gentleman has 17 minutes remaining.
Okay, thank you. Now, there's still much ground we need to cover here tonight, but I think I've set the table for what we're looking at and the devastation. So with that, I would like to yield to my colleague, Mr. Cliff Bentz of Oregon, for his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Congressman LaMalfa, for your years of work on the extraordinary problems in the Klamath. Let me begin by talking briefly about drought and what it means. I select this as a starting place because many out here in the East have the opposite problem, too much water. Sadly, to those of us in the West, the term drought is all too familiar. We know what the word means because we've lived in drought conditions for years. Drought means no water. It means bankruptcy. It means catastrophe. It means the death of trees and plants and animals and dreams. In anticipation of drought out in the West, we've developed means of surviving when droughts occur. We've built reservoirs, dams, canals, pipelines, drains, wells, and legal systems to deal with the supply and the allocation, legally and practically, of water, this most precious, essential, and life-giving resource. These systems, legal and hydraulic, provided the essential and irreplaceable foundation of communities in the West. These laws and the water divided under them provided a reliable, dependable system upon which futures were planned, families were raised, and rural towns with churches and schools and hospitals were built. Droughts were expected, but Western communities were prepared, or at least they thought they were. But change has come. Change has come in the form of the Endangered Species Act and in the form of hotter and drier weather. This law and these warmer, hotter conditions have upset, some would say destroyed, the systems that entire communities have relied upon for well over a century. Let me be clear, the Endangered Species Act is the law, and I'm not suggesting we break or violate it. Recently, I called for unity in the Klamath Basin, urging calm and cooperation in the face of this incredible and damaging challenge. But if ever there was an example of the need to refine and better implement the Endangered Species Act, what is happening to the Klamath Basin this year is that reason. But it's not simply possible to change the way the ESA is implemented in time to help this year. And as I mentioned, all of us know there's another thing happening. It's getting hotter and it's getting drier. And all of our systems, man-made and natural, are under stress. The stress of severe drought and an ever-increasing demand for water. Demand from fish, demand from wildlife, demand from agriculture, demand soon from rural homes which rely on wells for their water. First, well, what can we do? First, we must do our best to tell the nation that some 60 to 70 million people across the western United States will be suffering this year from the cost and the loss of severe drought. The Klamath Basin in Oregon and California, unfortunately, is the poster child for this disaster. Secondly, we must call out clearly and loudly that our laws as written and enforced, when faced with the choice of in-stream use for ESA purposes on one hand, or the community on the other, will allocate all of the water to in-stream use, letting other needs go begging. It must be noted that the water being given by the law and the means of enforcing it operates to give all the water to in-stream interests, even though this allocation is in excess of that which would have naturally flowed down the river in summer months. Once again, I want to be clear. This allocation of stored water for in-stream purposes is a choice of what to save and what to let go. And that choice has costs, incredible costs. Now, it's not my goal today to attack the administration, the Department of Interior, or the Bureau of Reclamation. It is my goal to call out that this country has, through its government and its laws, and the Endangered Species Act, made a decision to take water from a community and use it for another purpose, placing the burden of that choice on the people and other less fortunate creatures not protected by the ESA. So what is that cost? Some have said at least $400 million will be lost in the Klamath community this year, but that hardly tells the story, so let me elaborate. The average farmer has mortgage payments, property taxes, irrigation district assessments, equipment payments, and most important of all, the need to house and take care of his or her family. Without water, there are no crops, no income, no ability to pay the bills that all families have. Many producers in the basin have supply contracts that they've worked for years and years to achieve and retain. When producers don't deliver on these contracts, for example, to Safeway or even Whole Food markets, these contracts are lost to other competitors and many times to other countries, such as Mexico, Chile, Australia, and Brazil. Oftentimes, these contracts can never be recovered. Beef and dairy producers lack the grass for their cattle because there's no rain and they cannot irrigate. Hay is in short supply and prices of hay have increased dramatically. Beef and dairy producers are forced to sell their cattle because they cannot afford the cost of buying hay. Rebuilding these herds will require years and years and much more debt. In addition, the increased supply of cattle to market causes the immediate reduction in prices, adding insult to injury. And then there are jobs. Thousands of agriculture-related jobs will be lost. People who have been employed in the farming area for years will move away, and many will never return. And then there are farms. This is the second consecutive year of what may be many years of too little water to meet the many needs of the community. As the level of uncertainty regarding the future becomes ever more pronounced, more and more young people raised on farms lose faith in the future of farming and ranching and choose other careers. The average age of the American farmer is now the late 50s, and it keeps going up. This trend means that we will become more and more dependent upon foreign countries to sell us food. But everyone agrees in principle we should grow our food here at home. The pandemic and more recently the shipping crisis have shown us that our global supply chain is not always dependable. This choice, along with many others, to treat farmers and ranchers as though they are expendable is bad for our nation and bad for our future. When we talk about infrastructure, let's not forget that those who know how to operate farms and ranches are part of the essential infrastructure of our nation. Choices that don't balance the needs of environment and community are driving food production into other countries, putting us all at risk. So in addition, this drought will create and is creating extraordinary negative environmental, public health, and safety impacts. The waterfowl, reptiles, and amphibians mentioned by Congressman LaMalfa that rely on our canal system, ditch banks, and irrigated fields will simply not be there. They'll die as there's no water in the canals or fields for them. There will have been, or there will be, and will have been dust storms. Think Dust Bowl, and this is no exaggeration. 2 wildlife refuges rely exclusively on the Klamath Project for water. They'll receive no water for those wetlands and habitats this year. They will dry up. The waterfowl that use them will be hurt. There are 1,800 domestic water wells in Oregon within the geographic area served by the project. These will be affected. The drought comes with another side effect, increased wildfire risk. Last summer, my district was devastated by once-in-a-generation, supposedly, fires that burned over 1 million acres in Oregon, destroyed thousands of homes and businesses, wiped away 2 entire towns, and killed 11 people. Dry vegetation and forests combined with poor management are the perfect storm for out-of-control wildfires. And those fires will damage the Klamath watersheds, making this bad situation worse. So what can we do? In the short term, Rep. LaMalfa and I are proposing a $47 million critical aid package to help those hit hardest by the drought in the Klamath. Congressman LaMalfa will go through it in more detail. Long term, we strongly believe there are critical legal issues that need to be addressed. Farmers and irrigation districts have strong objections to the reallocation of stored water. Dams and reservoirs were built to capture water during the wet time of year, to have water available during the dry time of year. We've done that in the Klamath project, and irrigation districts pay for the infrastructure that provides that storage. But now the government is requiring that we direct the release of stored water away from farms to artificially increase the amount and flow in the Klamath River. During the irrigation season, the Klamath project will be providing much more flow in the Klamath River than ever would have occurred naturally before the project existed. This is a legal problem and it needs to be addressed. More water storage is needed. A future of hotter, drier summers means this problem is not going to go away. In the Klamath and across the West, we need better infrastructure and a long-term plan so we have enough water for farms, cities, fish, and refuges. As snowpack decreases, and it is, water storage is critical to have a reliable supply of water when these droughts occur. For long-term stability, we need the community to come together and figure out how to escape the zero-sum game that gives all the water to one use, ignoring others. There are critical parties to make this happen, and we need support of that work from the state and federal governments in our community. Agreement can be reached. This has been done elsewhere. And as mentioned earlier, we need to protect and improve our watersheds. This means our forests. Each year, all stakeholders face uncertainty and risk. This fight over water has fractured the Klamath community and will fracture others. To address these extraordinarily difficult problems, we must work together toward a long-term solution because this situation is not sustainable. Next year's weather may well be worse than what we're facing now. Everybody is being harmed. There are no winners in this situation. Fish populations are not recovering. Farms are not receiving enough water. Refuges are going dry. In the short run, perhaps we can get through this year with the government's help. But in the long run, the Klamath community will have to decide what kind of future they want. Congressman LaMalfa and I stand ready to work with everyone in the Klamath Basin to come up with real long-term solutions. It's time to sit down together and figure this out. Madam Speaker, I yield back to Congressman LaMalfa.
Thank you, Mr. Bentz. Appreciate us being able to team up on this dire situation up there in our common area like that. Let me just touch on this part here. This going into the wildlife refuge aspect in the areas there in the basin that have sustained much wildlife and waterfowl over the years. This is 2020 when the deliveries were already inadequate. Now, might be hard to see on camera here, but this is a photo of part of the duck kill and the birds that were plucked out of the Tule Lake area here, right here. So you can see some of the dots here indicate dead ducks. So I volunteered one day to go out and help retrieve some of that to get this problem out of the water there. You know, they become infested with maggots and they help spread disease and all that. So this is what this really looks like, the waterfowl that's being devastated up there. In 2020, even when it had some water, there was 44,000 acre-feet delivered then. 60,000 waterfowl estimated to have died in 2020. This year, if 0 acre-feet are delivered, what's that number going to look like? What's that going to mean for the flyway? This year is one duck we managed to rescue as they had an operation up there to take them back and pluck the live ones that were sick and take them to a nursery and spiff them up and release them once again. So that was one small positive. And indeed, part of the bill package that Mr. Bentz and I will be working on will have funding for that. So let's get down to the bottom line here. What do we have that we could be doing this year? This chart here indicates the Klamath Project water, what it brings to the table. This is stored water from the 4143 mark here down to 4136. This is what mankind can have influence over and actually be used for a lot of things. I think a lot more of this needs to go back into agriculture and be used for the wildlife refuges as well. So currently the lake sits at 4140. So that's 307,000 acre-feet of available water down to the level where you can't control it anymore. It becomes what they call dead pool. This is what the suckerfish need here, this zone. This here is deemed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife the additional 2 feet, 134,000 acre feet, as a suckerfish number that they want to see. So if we look at this total number, we still have available between the current level and the 4138, 173,000 acre feet, 173,000 acre feet in this lake that could go right now to help keep those canals going, whatever agriculture still could use it at this late date in mid-May, and to go in the refuges. And this still concedes the 2 feet of surface water, 134,000 acre feet, to the suckerfish, which is above what is really their right, as the Klamath Project is designed and intended and dedicated to agriculture when it was built over 100 years ago. So we have 173,000 acre feet above this arbitrary U.S. Fish and Wildlife number for suckerfish that we could use and put into play. Will that happen? It's hard telling. It's probably going to take yet more litigation up there to back up what the Oregon courts have already ruled does belong under the federal law to the growers, to the project. So will we see water going down this A canal here, the initial canal coming out? I don't know. Will we see it coming through this Link River Dam to get to these end needs? Who knows? Things have gone a lot different direction under this administration right now, and it's tragic. Tragic what's going to be happening to the wildlife I showed you, to agriculture, to the products we still need. So in the interim, Mr. Bentz mentioned that we're going to be introducing legislation which has, again, a total package of about $57 million. $40 million will help to fill in what's going to be lost to agriculture and the irrigators there. $2.5 million for refuges, which will include the botulism assistance for the disease that's going to be out there for all the dead ducks that are going to happen. $2.5 million for residential wells, as some of them could be going dry if a canal and others are not charging and replenishing the groundwater supply. $3 million for commercial fishermen, $4 million to repair the inevitable damage that's going to happen to these canals if they don't get wet, like my wooden boat analogy. There'll be $5 million for food aid through USDA and the BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, for the tribes and tribal governments on their food aid. So also, at this same time, Bureau of Reclamation has an expansion and construction of a new headquarters in Klamath Falls that the growers get the bill for in order to get no water this year. We're setting aside in this legislation the concept that they need a new building up there to house who knows how many personnel that aren't doing the original goal of the project. $4.3 million are currently obligated. This needs to go back into the relief of what's going to take to either run the district as it is and direct relief. So, and finally, the relief to the farmers themselves is not having to make the payments to Bureau of Reclamation that they do every year to help pay the bills and keep things going because they're not getting the water. So I'm proud to author that legislation with Mr. Bentz and bring the relief they need. But wouldn't it be something to actually bring them the water that is going to be much more sustaining for the wildlife, for the infrastructure, for the domestic wells, for agriculture, since everybody watching this probably enjoys some of these food products, whether it's the French fries, the horseradish, the mint, the alfalfa that goes for feed to make many that are the beef products and others. The amazing things they do up there when you tour that area and you talk to these good people that are just trying to do what they've done for generations, what they were promised by the federal government, especially our returning veterans after World War I, World War II, which were given this promise, especially in lieu, in some cases, of their after-war bonus that they would receive. We need to uphold this promise and quit jerking the chain on the people of the Klamath Basin. So thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Pursuant to Section 11B of House Resolution 188, the